Hey, I'm Charlotte.
And I'm Rich.
And we felt that there were probably 10 questions or barriers or hurdles that are preventing some of you from stepping into the online space and sharing evangelistic content.
And so we've approached 10 guests to come on each podcast to explain to us how they managed to get over the hurdles themselves and to give us their wisdom.
So we hope you can join us and learn something from our expert panel, from our wisdom here at CV, and hopefully some of our conversation. I don't have a clue where to start. Biggest question we get asked in our work at CV when people are wanting to put evangelistic content out there. What would you say to someone who asks you that question, Rich?
Yeah, great question. A complex one, I think, because it definitely ties into who you are. And I think trying to start something, especially as an individual, if we look at that, I know there's ministries or churches are looking, but we're trying to tell people the good news of Jesus. You're trying to be evangelistic, tell people what God's doing. You got to start, I think, with who you are and how you're wired. So, for example, if you're not funny, don't try be funny. If you're not uber creative, you don't have to try be uber creative. And so I think starting with knowing who you are and what your strengths are and going with that is as vitally important as working out, like, what is the content that I'm going to do? And so for me, I love trying to teach the Bible in a way that anyone could understand. And that's always been kind of like my MO when I've preached or spoke or communicated pre the internet? I don't know if that's a thing, but it was a thing, definitely, but pre all of the kind of world that we now live in. And so I've just tapped into that side of me and gone, well, I'll start there. Now, it's not the best, it's not amazing, but it's where I've started. And I think like a car starts in gear 1, and it's going at like 2-3 miles an hour, it then gets up to 10 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour, and you go through the gears. I think the same when it comes to digital content is you got to go through the gears. And we all know from learning how to learn to drive that the most difficult bit of driving, well, it certainly was for me, I failed 4 times.
Unless you're like me, it's on an automatic.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'd say that's cheating, but it's wisdom. Yeah. But for me, it was, I failed 4 times, but the most difficult part of driving was always learning how do you get out first and go through. And I think it's the same with digital content, is learning where to start and getting into that first gear. Everyone wants to be in the 3rd lane on a motorway going, 70 miles an hour and flying past everyone, but it takes time to get there. And so starting with how you're wired, starting with looking at what you're good at doing, just even pre-digital stuff, kind of like what do you enjoy doing? How do you communicate that enjoyment? And then how could you put that to telling people the good news? I think that's a brilliant place to start.
Yeah, it's great. That's really what, and I think when we're just generally sharing our faith, it's the same question, isn't it? It's like, how do I start a conversation online? So it's thinking about it as a conversation to reach out with people. It's not content per se. It's how am I just conveying the message of the good hope of the gospel. So recently I caught up with a guy called Ben Adams, and he runs the Wooden Spoon Ministry. So it's only been running about 6 months or so, and they have put out content out there to engage a younger generation audience, to ask questions about faith. And I really wanted to ask him where he started. So let's just check out what he said.
Yeah, so I work as a freelance video editor, and I was in a period of time where my work went completely dry. So for the month of August last year, all my work as a freelancer went dry, and I earned £200 in total that month. So my rent came out of my savings, and I thought, okay, I have all this free time this month. What am I going to do? And I was watching different people and different ministries online, like the Bible Project on YouTube and The Way UK on Instagram. And I thought, wow, these are amazing. And I would love to take inspiration from these different formats and kind of have my own creative twist on it in a way I can share the gospel in my heart, the things God's shown me in my life to reach different people. And yeah, even if it just reaches a few, Jesus leaves the 99 to find the one. And so even if it reaches just one, then it's worth it. And so I thought, yeah, this is great. Let's give this a crack. And so I prayed quite a short prayer because I kind of already decided I was going to do this before I prayed, which is maybe not what I'd recommend, but it's what I did. And just because I kind of thought, well, if God doesn't say no, and I know that what I want to do is in line with the Bible and his will, then that means it's basically a yes. So I just kind of went for it. And I thought, doing the format of street interviews like The Way do is such a fantastic idea. And I thought, why don't I have something similar to that as one of my formats in the way I can make content. And I thought, oh, but they use this like special microphone handle and I don't have one. So what could I use? And I just racked my brain. I was like, oh, maybe I could just stick it on the end of a wooden spoon. And why don't I just call it Wooden Spoon Ministry? And then I flirted with a bunch of other ideas for what the name could be and the page idea could be. And this one just stuck and I just couldn't get it out of my head. So I was like, yeah, let's just roll with it. Let's call it Wooden Spoon Ministry. And then I made the first video the next day, which was my testimony, which I then turned into, I shot in my bedroom here and then animated it and told the story of my basic testimony, how I found my faith in God. And that video got 270,000 views straight away. So yeah, God just blessed it. The first video I made was my testimony where I just briefly explained how I grew up in a Christian home, but fell away from faith and then came across a YouTube video which re-sparked my faith in God and desire to pursue that. And I made the whole thing into an animation. And after that, in terms of wondering what direction to go or what kind of content to make, I filmed my friend's baptism and made a short video about that. And then I thought that for me, something that I've always found really powerful that's connected with me when I'm listening to a preacher on a Sunday is testimonies. And I think what's really interesting, there have been some studies on how the human brain reacts to stories. So if you have a crowd of people and a person giving a talk at the front of a big room and the person is saying whatever they might be saying, and then they say, now I'm going to tell you a story. It's like an on switch in everyone's brain and everyone wakes up. And what's interesting is if you go to India and you see the same thing, person at the front of a room of people says, okay, now I'm going to tell you a parable. Everyone's brain just switches on. So it's like the human brain is wired to react to stories, to narratives, and to find the meaning inside of them, which is an interesting thing if you think about the Bible and that we're literally made to respond to meaning within stories, and how Jesus just constantly told parables all the time because he knew that they'd connect with people. And so for me, I always found testimonies, people's stories in their own lives would be very much grab my attention and connect with me. And I thought, oh yeah, this is what I want to do. I want to share testimonies. I want to share people's stories. So I went around and found some friends in church that have been freed from drug addiction or whatever their story might be, and filmed them and told their story. A friend of mine, Leo, he met Jesus in a dream, which completely changed his life. We filmed his story. Another friend, Eleanor, she struggled with addiction and found freedom in worship music and worshiping God. So I was like, these are amazing stories which will bless people and I want to put them out there. So I ended up, just filming and animating these stories for my friends. And then to kind of take the next step on from there, in the other format I chose was the street interviews. Me and my friend Elliot, we just hit the street with the spoon and wrote some questions and we just went for it, honestly. I think that's the biggest thing I would say for anyone wanting to start social media to share your faith or an online ministry of any kind of capacity, would be literally just go for it. Like, don't sit around and think about it for 6 months and then dive into it. Like, just go for it straight away. Even if you don't have the technical skills and knowledge, like if you've got the message and you've got the heart, like you can learn all those stuff along the journey, along the way, and you'll improve your camera skills and your editing and all that kind of thing. But if you have the heart for it, people are needing the message. So just go for it. Yeah.
What a great unpacking there of where to start, because, we've said it's difficult, right? It's difficult to sit down, to start, and just a few things he said there, which I'm dead encouraged by. I'm like listening to thinking, I'm so encouraged, where he just looked around, right? He looked around and thought, what am I going to do? And saw a wooden spoon and went with that. And that's kind of formed what he's gone into. Then he kind of, what we said earlier, he's looked into his heart without calling it looking into his heart, but he's realized he found Jesus by listening to something online, watching a YouTube clip that unpacked a testimony and a story. And so he's gone back to that. And I think it's a kind of searching through of, what is it that I enjoy? What is it that I'm good at? And what is it I'd like to do more of? And I think then him saying, I then went to some friends. It wasn't like he went on the internet and searched up who to interview and sent complex emails to try get them on board. He just went to his friends and started. And I think it's scrappy, it's messy, but I think if it's something you enjoy doing, or it's something you've got a passion for and you can harness that, there's always great energy. And when I mean energy, I don't mean in the crystal type of energy. I just mean Holy Spirit dynamite energy, where there's like an energy to go for it, an energy to make it happen, an energy that is scrappy and you don't know how it's all going to work and look, but give it a go. And that's what he kind of finished on. So really encouraged by that.
Yeah, and I loved that he started off with his testimony as well. Like, no one can argue with your testimony.
Right.
And, so he started with what he had in his hand, which is his phone and his story. He's told that. It's had incredible impact. And again, he started with what he had in his hand, his network of friends and his phone. He's given them a call, said, hey, can I interview you? Can I tell your story? And it's amazing just to see that it's as simple as that to get started. I was reading the other day just some stats around like 90% of people who start out don't continue on past the first year. And then I think it's another 50% don't carry on past the fifth year of that 10% that are left. So actually, there's probably a lot of people who have got to start out and then they might make a failure in the first year, and that's okay. But just pivot, pick yourself up, maybe find a different way, but just don't hold back. Just get started. I think it's really the message I'm picking up.
Yeah.
So.
And back to my driving analogy, I think like when I set out to learn how to drive, I was setting out to pass my test. And I think like I had like an end version of what my learning was going to be. And so my starting and failing and not being able to get out of first and not being able to do a parallel park, I didn't fall at that and think, oh, forget this. It was more just the fact of, no, like this is all part of me learning. And the goal is I want to pass my test. And I think someone came to me the other day and said, oh, I want to start a podcast, and talk to me about loads of ideas and asked for some advice on that. I said, my only advice is this: most people, the statistic you've just given, most people don't actually carry it through. So they might do 3 or 5 or 10. I was like, have your goal as I'm just going to do it for X amount of time, be it a year or 2 years, and then lift up my head. And what you'll realize is most don't carry it through because the work to go from gear 1 to gear 2 is difficult, and then to go to gear 3 and fail and go back to gear 1 again. But learning how to just start and just go, you know what, the goal of this is I'm just going to try be consistent in putting things out there, and that's going to be very public. People are going to see it. They'll see all my mistakes, or hopefully they'll see me go from gear 1 to gear 5, parallel park, and pass the test.
And do you 70 miles an hour down the motorway?
Yeah, I'm not there yet. But,
Cool.
it's the analogy. It falls flat on its face in many places. But the idea being is that, your starting has got a purpose, which is I do want to reach people online and I want to see it help people, and that might take some time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really wise. And our boss, James, always gives us some really wise advice whenever we're wanting to try something and get started somewhere. He's like, let's just see it as a test. So sometimes if you frame it like that in your brain, that it's a test, that if it doesn't work, that's okay. But like you say, give it a time period, what you're going to try, and just see how it works. So the next thing I asked Ben around was like, had he got any tips or hints for anybody wanting to start out online? And let's just kind of see what he says.
If you're interested in making a digital social media ministry, for whether it be just a page for yourself or for your church, I do have some tips and ideas on what I think is a good way to start. And I think the first thing above all else is to pray. I think that making sure that your heart is in the right place and that you're aligned with God's purpose is really the whole reason that we're doing this. And if you're in any way seeking like personal fame or glory or being in the limelight because that's cool and you get the attention or anything like that, I think that it's important to check your heart. And I think a good way to do that is, to pray and just surrender all to God, to his will be done and not ours. And then to have, if you can, people around you that will check on you and that you can talk to about that sort of thing and pray with them, and they can advise you and help if they think that would be a good idea for you or not. But I think for most people, if your heart's in the right place, then absolutely just go for it. I think social media can be quite a destructive place to people's minds, and there's a lot of content on there that's not healthy and good for people. And so to have more people that are putting out the message of hope to the lost and broken world, like that's what we need. And so I think definitely go for it, I would also say, I think that a really good idea is to, just in a practical sense, is to find your formats. So for me, I took inspiration from a page called The Way UK, and they do street interviews. And I decided I wanted to have a similar format to that because that works really well to open up conversations and share questions and get people thinking. And then I saw the Bible Project, and I loved their videos and how they communicated the message of the Bible in such a simple and enjoyable to digest format. And me with having a background in editing and animation, that was something I knew that I would be able to kind of implement into my style of making content. So I think having 2 to 3 formats that you can make, and then that your audience can learn to expect from you, that's really good. And then if you can be consistent with posting is really, really important in growth, to be honest. So if you can aim for like maybe 1 to 2 posts per week to start off with, and then as you grow, if you're able to put more time into it, then the more the merrier. But yeah, just being as consistent as possible with your posting and having your set formats is 2 really important pieces of advice as well.
Great insight there of someone who's literally just started, right? From us recording this, I think is he about 7 or 8 months into that journey, and the insight there to seek God and pray and give it to Him is one that we should do on every area of our life. But we all know often gets missed. But yeah, definitely, I love that. But also the idea of pulling a wider group of people in who can support you in it. I know for the journey of me putting content out, be it podcasts or be it the content that I'm currently doing now, of where I'm trying to get over the Christian wall and reach doom scrollers with 1-minute content. Might be longer in the future, but at the moment I'm experimenting. I've brought my wife into that. She would never ever go in front of a camera. She's just not that type, but she's definitely with me on it. But then also friends, when the accountability is as much about, hey, I'm starting and I just want to be open up front with you. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm giving it a whirl. And then they're encouraging me or calling me. The other day, someone dropped into my DM to say, hey, Rich, just keep doing it. It's just one of your things just appeared on my TikTok, and it really encouraged me. And so he didn't know on that day I wasn't massively encouraged about what I was doing, but his encouragement came through at the right time. I thought, okay, I'll do it again. And so I loved his points about bringing people in and praying.
Yeah, I think that's great. And also for us at CV, obviously we're a team together. So when we're trying to launch something new somewhere, like a new country or a new language, we really come together as a team to just really understand the nuances of that country and the languages and the people groups. So I think also about where you start online is a heart posture, but also a little bit explorative about the people you're trying to reach and trying to understand them so you can really meet them. One thing I found really interesting was in the recent Talking Jesus research, they found that 36% of people go online to search to find out more answers about the meaning of life and understand the Christian faith. So that shows that we have really got a great opportunity to reach these people. So whatever's holding us back, we need to step into and really just speak into that algorithm of like, let's keep speaking Jesus and hope.
And I like the CV Facebook page that you guys have set up. There's I don't know what you call it. I just know it as the CV Facebook community group.
Okay, yeah. So that's our training group where we're showing people how to do this, like be in an online space.
Yeah, I like the fact that people are on there, they're throwing resources up there. You can also like find other people that are doing things. And so I've started to follow other people, not to try copy or replicate because they're doing what's in their heart and they're doing how they're wired, but just to like track and be encouraged by what they're doing as well. So yeah, I think it's a brilliant resource.
That's great. Thank you. The next thing that I spoke to Ben about, which I think is really important, is kind of around any failures, inverted commas, but what hasn't worked for him. And it was really important to hear his insights into this.
So I've been making videos trying to turn it into a job or become successful for 10 years. Since I was 13 was when I first picked up a camera. I'm now 23. I've made videos and vlogs on YouTube about football, about kayaking, about jiu-jitsu. I tried to make videos about Jesus when I was 19, and that did do well. But just about all different kinds of things, snowboarding and traveling and vlogs in all different areas. And nothing. I ended up working for some clients that would do really well and would grow to lots of views and that kind of thing, but never my own content took off. But I did learn something every time. So I learned, oh, okay, in this video I didn't do well because the thumbnail was this, or the title was that, or it was just the hook at the beginning wasn't interesting enough, or this type of content does really well, or this length of content, or this color grade style works well on social media. And you learn all these things just basically through, I wouldn't say failing, but through making a video that doesn't do well, or making one that does better than the others. You're like, why did that one do better? It's like, oh, because of this thing. And you recognize, learn, and yeah, so I've had so many starts, as it were, before Wooden Spoon Ministry. And so, yeah, just feeling super blessed that this is the one that's done really well, because this is the most important message out of any video I've ever, any type of content I've tried to make, for sure.
Yeah, interesting what Ben's just outlined there, and been able to really unpack his success that he's been in, the success of the last 7 months of telling people about Jesus. But behind that success is all these seemingly unsuccessful projects, from snowboarding, jiu-jitsu to whatever. And there's a book by Malcolm Gladwell called The Tipping Point, and he outlines in that this idea that for someone to be an expert in something, it's going to take 10,000 hours of practice.
That's a lot of time.
It's a lot of time. And he goes through lots of different examples, but the idea being is really and truly you need to put 10,000 hours in until you can be in the kind of specialist expert field. And I think you've got to start somewhere, and you hear of his start there, and I'm sure he's knocking on thousands of hours, and his thousands more of hours are coming as well. And I think you just got to get the miles in. It's like when you're training for a marathon. I've only ever done one. But when I trained, I remember doing my first 3 miles, and it was the first bit of the training, and I hated it. It was the most painful 3 miles. I thought I'll never, ever be able to do this in a million years. 26.2 miles, I think, is a marathon. Could be 0.1. I don't know. It was just a long way. And I remember the first 3 miles thinking, I'll never do it. But if you just end up putting the mileage in, which is the strategy for an average runner like me, you then actually do complete a marathon. And I think it's the same when it comes to this digital space, is you got to start somewhere. And that includes a lot of failures, and it includes a lot of disastrous 1-minute videos, or a lot of things that you'd look back on and go, I'd never do that again. I was saying to someone the other day, there is some podcasts that I've still got out there that I don't agree with anymore.
I love that.
And they're not that, it's just I've moved on a bit, but
Yeah.
they're out there, and it doesn't, they're not theologically incorrect, and they're not like biblically wrong. It's just maybe I've moved on, but it's part and parcel of me starting, and I'm not going to go back and take them down because they're not that drastic. It's just more, I think I've moved on, and people are going to have to go on that journey. And I'm a lot deeper into my 10,000 hours now than I was, first of all, when I started. So
That's a really great analogy. I love that. And I was thinking really from terms of us at CV, we've done I've only been at CV for a couple of years, but actually having looked back at the history of CV and the pivots we've gone on to make evangelistic content more accessible, more creative, to get it in front of people, it's just an incredible journey. And I think we will still continue to pivot and change and continue, because we want the name of Jesus to be out there with the people. And actually the mode of delivery regularly changes. There's always new platforms coming out. There's always new trends and things to jump on and stuff. So I think it's really important that we just continue to be really pivotable and be able to flip and change quite quickly and deal with that, be creative, be led by the Holy Spirit. But also pick ourselves up quite quickly when things don't go well and don't go right. And I love that about Ben's story, is that he's like, I've done kayaking, I've done this, I've done this, but he feels like he's landed on something that he feels is working. And, there's not tons of people in this evangelistic space online. There are some people starting to have a go, but I bet every single one of them would have a different journey or story of how their content is developing, but it's not all supposed to be the same. So that's good everyone's trying to find their voice, trying to find where they sit in this area. So I think it's really encouraging to see.
And it's the fear of failure, right? Looking, I think Mr. Beast, I know he doesn't preach the good news, but he's some news, chocolate bar news and other stuff. But he started out doing, I think it was Minecraft or something like that, and doing videos on that front, and it's now spawned into this. And I think the idea of where do I start is you start with what's in your heart, you start with what's in your hand, and you give it a go and you see where it goes. The difficulty with that is it's very public, and it's a bit like an artist. An artist, when they write a song, they're crafting it behind the scenes, and at some point they've actually got to put it out there. And I don't know any artist who thinks that it's fully complete, I'm really happy with it. All artists are tortured with not being happy with what they're about to put out there, but they put it out anyway. I think the idea of releasing something and just releasing the content, releasing the idea, just putting it out there, it's the best way for it to travel, because it won't go anywhere if it's just sat on your phone or sat in your heart or sat in your head. It needs to just get out there, and then getting used to, okay, I'll just go again, or I'll just go again, and realizing that as you do put it out there, that you thought people weren't going to like it, or they do like it. You thought no one was going to watch it, and no one does. And then you have to deal with yourself that no one watched that, and I spent 3 hours putting it together. It's like, yeah, and that's okay. Just go again and see what God does with it, and go again. And you suddenly start to build up a resilience in you of like, I'll just give it another go. And that resilience builds, I think, a kind of engine power that allows you to overcome some even bigger obstacles in the future.
I think it's also a bit of obedience as well, isn't it?
Right.
Of just like stepping out in faith. Like I was listening to Brandon Lake talking the other day, and I think he said something like, he put out like 58 songs or something to his record album, his label, to say, these are my potential next best songs. And I can imagine he's poured his heart and soul into some of these songs as a creative. And then they're like, this is the one that's going to be the next big hit. And he was like, oh, that wasn't the one I was even going to choose. So it's being vulnerable with it, isn't it? And I think there's something in that of just laying it down before God and being prepared to, place your heart out there. And I was also thinking, when you were just talking about evangelistic content, doesn't necessarily even just have to be a face to camera.
Right.
So like my son loves watching I think it's Mikey and JJ, where it's just literally this guy who's playing Minecraft and like the guy's talking over what he's doing and what he's doing next. There's a guy who's set up like a Roblox community church. So he's built a whole Roblox world, and then like over the years, hundreds, if not thousands of people are now attending this church on a Roblox community in an evangelistic way. So I think as well, we can't coin the creativity within this too closely and the narrative, because if you're passionate about gaming, there's ways to reach people evangelistically, online space, through gaming, or if you want to game and talk about Jesus or jump on some of those things where they have conversations, great. That's another way in the online space to be pioneering and evangelistic. So
one of my friends is a vicar in the north of England, and loves gaming, and so he's created a little gaming studio and jumps on an evening and basically games with these other communities around the world, and he's known as the vicar, and they know he is, and he's shared his testimony loads of times. He's prayed with people, and just weaves in and out of that space, which for me, I'm like, don't ever get me gaming, I'd be one, I'm awful at it. and two, I would be so intense, I wouldn't be able to share my testimony or story. But he's obviously naturally gifted it, and he's just started with what he's got, and he's built it over the years. That's he's got lights in his studio now, he's got one of these kind of fancy microphones, but he's just started, and he also enjoys it, and that gives him great energy for it. And so start with what you've got and chuck 58 songs in like Brandon Lake.
And I think that leads us really nicely to our last question with Ben. And I asked him where someone should start if they are new to digital evangelism.
So for me, I wanted to reach people in the younger generation because I struggled quite badly with depression as a teenager. And I think that the message of hope, of the truth in the gospel, was something that I knew about but didn't really connect with me on a heart level, or I couldn't see others that this was really connecting with. And so I wanted to reach the kind of, I'd say probably 13 to 30. I know that sounds kind of broad, but the kind of teenage to young adult range of people. And so I just made my content in a style of way that I thought would appeal to someone like me. I'm 23. And so that would be fun and kind of stylish and visually engaging. And there are on social platforms tools you can utilize. You can spend a bit of money. You don't have to spend very much, but you can spend money to push your content out to a specific target audience. So it could be like 18 to 25-year-olds in the UK that consume content with certain hashtags about Christianity or something like that. I personally didn't do that. I've never paid for content on Wooden Spoon Ministry to be pushed out. It just reached that audience naturally. And I think the way that I did that was I got loads of my friends at church to follow the page and to like the content initially. So that was probably 50 to 100 people that are in that group that engaged with it. And so I think Instagram recognized that and pushed it out to more people who are in the same category as them. So you definitely utilize your friends and your family to just get that first few hundred eyes, even if it's like 20 or something, or 10 or 5, just a few, to just get the initial like first step for getting your content out there. Utilizing friends definitely is a great way to do that.
Ben really highlighted to me there, just really getting to know your audience and the data insights and trying to find the people where they're at. And I think that's really important, because that's something at CV we're always really conscious of, is we're really into data-driven insights. So like, who are these people? What are they actually consuming? What are they checking out? And in turn, what about, what are they engaging with in our content, and who's responding to what? So we've had some content that went just impressively well. So we had this one piece of content called The Middle of the Night, and we used to put it online, and it would just say to people, look, it's the middle of the night, you must be watching this video, maybe you've got something going on. And the responses we would get to that were incredible. And what I love is that from that we were able to really extrapolate some real great knowledge about some of the people, because we could get like data heat maps and stuff. And maybe for other people just starting out online, that's probably a little bit freaky and like, what's this, a data heat map and data driven? But you know, there's Facebook stats pages that you can go on and see what some of these people are interested in, what else they've gone on and watched and things. So I think those are really great places to start, is just getting to know some of those stats pages that are on offer to you, just at a basic level of what people have engaged with, so you can get to know your audience and continue to just refine your content to meet them where they're at.
Yeah, and picking up there, I find that stuff very overwhelming. And so going back to what we said at the beginning, which is, start with, how you're wired. I find looking at all the data a bit overwhelming, and it kind of like can paralyze me. Whereas I've got other people, friends, even my brother in my family, he loves the data side of stuff. So he's helped me on that side. But where I've had to get to is just pick one data point. And my data point that I've picked is, how do I get to doom scrollers? And the data is, loads of people are sat on their sofas on a night scrolling through socials. How do I get there? And then I would be overwhelmed looking at some of the things you just said. So I've had to pull back and just try, just give it a whirl, give it a go, and take that one data point, like he's saying, find out who it is. And so mine is, I have pictures in my head of people that I'm speaking to as I'm in, like, doing my stuff, of like, if I could get to them. And the other day, someone put a comment on one of my feeds, which was like, I might be getting there. And they said, I blooming needed to hear this today, but they didn't use the word blooming. They used a secular swear word. And it was like, brilliant. Like, not that kept tumbled out of them, but more the fact of, there was one person who doesn't fit in the Christian world that I'm trying to reach. I'm trying to get over that wall. And so, just keeping that data point in front of me and knowing I'm trying to get doom scrollers is my version of maybe someone who's wired at looking at the data and so on. It's my version of my kind of data point.
At least you're starting somewhere. So it's better than avoiding the data altogether. Right. So, but yeah, I mean, we've had a really great conversation talking about not knowing where to start. Yeah. I think Ben's given us some really great insight about where he started with his testimony, but also just starting with his passion and his heart, and also the place he was in of like being a freelancer with not much money coming in. I know that's not going to be the case for everyone, but just that's Ben's personal story. And it's just really encouraging that just in the past few months, God has just taken it probably in ways that he probably never expected. And so I think that's the note I'd like to finish on, is that start somewhere and God will take it in a way that you never expected it to.